It's April 5th, and the strange side of history awaits. Today, we have a survivor who turned fear into justice, a volcano that plunged the world into darkness, and a man drifting alone against impossible odds. Let's begin. On April 5th, 1984, a teenager walked away from the darkest hours of her life. 17-year-old Lisa McVey was riding her bike home after a late shift in Tampa, Florida, when a man stepped out of the shadows. He pressed a gun to her head, and in seconds, everything changed. She was forced into a car by Bobby Joe Long, a man who had already taken lives and wasn't supposed to let this one go. For the next 26 hours, Lisa was held captive, blindfolded and trapped inside a nightmare. But instead of panicking, she started thinking. She spoke to him calmly, called him sweet, and asked about his life. She made herself human, and while he thought he was in control, Lisa was quietly gathering evidence. She counted steps, memorized sounds, noticed details most people would miss. She even left behind fingerprints just in case she didn't survive, because she knew she might not. But then something unthinkable happened. He let her go. So on April 5th, he dropped her off alone and alive. She immediately went to the police, and despite disbelief, she described everything with chilling precision. Days later, her memory led detectives straight to him. The man, who had thought he had chosen his victim, had been studied, outsmarted, and exposed, and because she survived, he never killed again. Do you think you could think clearly enough to outsmart someone? On April 5th, 1815, a mountain in Indonesia began to wake, and the world would soon feel it. Deep within Mount Tambora, pressure had been building for centuries. Then, the earth split open. The explosion that followed was beyond anything humanity had ever witnessed. The blast was heard over 1,000 miles away. Entire villages vanished instantly, buried under fire, ash, and a collapsed sky. But the horror didn't end that day. A towering column of ash and sulfur climbed into the stratosphere and began to circle the planet. Sun faded, the sky turned strange, and the world grew colder. By the following year, 1816, something was deeply wrong. Snow fell in summer, frost killed crops in July, and across Europe and North America, fields failed and food disappeared. People starved. Disease spread through the weakened population, moving like shadows through entire regions. What began as an eruption became a global catastrophe. They would later call it the year without summer, because even the skies felt unnatural, dark, and heavy. The same gloom would inspire eerie works like Frankenstein, born from a world that no longer felt safe. It was a moment when the earth turned against itself, and the consequences circled the globe. On April 5th, 1943, a man stepped off a raft after disappearing into the ocean for 133 days. His name was Poon, and by all logic, he should have died months earlier. On November 23rd, 1942, the cargo ship, the SS Ben Labid, was torn apart by a German U-boat. 54 men were aboard, only one survived. He found himself alone, drifting on a small wooden raft in the middle of the South Atlantic. No land, no help, just endless water. At first, he rationed what little he had, biscuits, water, and hope. But hope doesn't last long at sea. He pulled a nail from the raft and turned it into a hook and used wire as fishing line. He caught fish, trapped birds, drank rainwater when it came, and suffered when it didn't. The sun burned him by day, and the cold surrounded him by night. Sharks circled, and storms nearly swallowed him whole. And yet, he still survived. Days blurred into weeks, and weeks into months. The ocean became a prison with no walls, until April 5th, when a shape appeared on the horizon. When they pulled him away from the raft, he was alive, but barely. Poon holds the world record for the longest time a human has ever survived alone on a life raft, drifting in silence, surrounded by nothing but open ocean. Another day, another strange bite from history. Like, comment, and subscribe. Your next eerie dose is just a day away.